Hey everyone, thank you for joining us on this special edition of CultureCast. I am joined today with the one and only Chris Bollwage. He is the mayor of Elizabeth, New Jersey, the great city of Elizabeth, New Jersey, which I personally grew up in, so this is actually a very special interview for myself. So, Mr. Bollwage, if you wouldn't mind, please introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So, Louis, it's good to be here with you. I thank you for having come to my office and this opportunity.
Thank you.
Talk about the city of Elizabeth. I was born and raised here in the city of Elizabeth. Where were you at?
So, as a kid, I migrated here at 5 years of age. I'm from California when our family first came to the country. My first apartment was on 2nd Street. We lived all over the port section. I've lived on Clark Place. I've lived on Olive Street. I lived pretty much every street. My parents used to move every single year. So that's where my heart is, down the port.
So where you're from? You said California. Where'd you?
So my family migrated from Guatemala.
Guatemala, okay.
Yes, and we moved to California briefly for just under a year. And then we came to New Jersey to meet up with my other two siblings. And I've been in Elizabeth a very long time. I went to school in St. Adalbert's. I went to school in St. Peter and Paul. And then when I was in junior high school, we went to Raleigh, and I graduated from Raleigh High School. Okay. But my heart is in Elizabeth. I buy all my real estate in Elizabeth. I just love the town.
When my father came here, his family came here in the early 1800s. I kept teasing my father's family that there were probably Hessians left over from the Revolutionary War.
Exactly.
My mother's family came here in the mid-1800s from Ireland. My father's family from Germany, and my mother's family probably immigrated after the potato famine and the lack of food in Ireland, and came here. My grandfather owned a very thriving furniture business on Elizabeth Avenue, and during the Great Depression they lost it. I think they only had 1 or 2 more payments left on the mortgage, couldn't afford to pay it,
look at that.
and lost the entire business during the 1930s. So my dad grew up in the port section of the city where you speak of. He grew up on Marshall Street, and then eventually Franklin Street.
I lived there too.
A little bit of Fulton too is in his blood. My mother grew up in North Elizabeth on a street called Van Buren Avenue.
Know it very well.
Yeah, so that's where they come from. And I was born, the first house we lived in was on Bellevue Street, over near the Elmore Library.
Yep.
And then they bought a home on North Avenue, which is where I spent all of my growing years, going to Blessed Sacrament Grammar School in North End, and then St. Mary's High School, before I went to Kean University to get an undergraduate degree in economics, and then a graduate master's degree in public administration, and now I teach there on the adjunct faculty.
Look at that.
I teach a public administration course.
So what was it like growing up in Elizabeth at that time as a kid?
Well, you didn't have cell phones.
No
right?
cell phones.
No cell phones. You didn't have Instagram or YouTube or anything like that. You had to make your own fun, which is usually out in the streets.
Yeah.
Around the corner on Van Buren Avenue, near where my mother grew up, and there was a group of kids. We used to play wiffle ball in the evenings. Used to play football in the winter. The cracks in the street were the touchdown lines.
Yep.
Or you made the bases out of chalk. There were not as many cars back in the 60s as there are today coming up and down the street.
Sure.
And if a big truck came by and tore down the electrical line or the telephone line, that always caused a problem when you needed to keep playing the game.
Of course.
Sometimes the games lasted all week. You'd play on a Monday and you'd go back there on Tuesday and play again. A couple of the kids had baskets in their backyard. We'd play hoops once in a while. So growing up was more of a neighborhood function where people left their houses. Today I have a daughter who spends more time on a cell phone inside than going outside and finding things to do. So it's a different time, but we made our own ability to have fun, and you had to, in order to socialize, meet other kids.
Absolutely. I remember growing up in Elizabeth, we used to play basketball on Brophy Field, and now I drive by Brophy Field and there's almost no one out there. And I'm like, I remember you used to have to wait to play basketball games. And now with the advent of the internet, mobile devices, it seems like kids are not as active, and that's a problem.
And all those courts are still there.
They're all, and now they're beautiful.
And they're maintained, and the softball field is still there, the baseball diamond, plus a playground. And you're right, during a lot of days, those courts will stay empty. We do a basketball league with kids that we play there.
Yeah.
Sometimes we get March Madness going to go along with the NCAA tournament, where we'll have kids playing in our rec centers. During June or July, we'll get kids out there in a structured league to play basketball. But I think what you refer to, Louis, is the pickup games.
Yep, the pickup
And
games.
the pickup
absolutely.
games are no longer
Yeah, you don't see that too
avant-garde
much.
anymore, right?
Yeah, so growing up in Elizabeth, did you ever think you would end up being the mayor of the city?
No, that was never part of the game
Never
plan.
part, huh?
No, I went to St. Mary's High School. I never thought I would be involved in politics. And the reason I got involved in politics was the local committee seat, the Democratic Party committee seat, became vacant. The gentleman that was there was a guy named Danny Conway. He was the committee man for a long time, and he moved out of the neighborhood. And he moved out of the city, so the Democratic seat became vacant in 1977. And so I ran for the Democratic committee seat, and I was successful in becoming a Democratic committee representative. And so moving forward, I got involved in Ray Lesniak, who was our state senator for many years.
Sure.
He ran for mayor in 1980, and I worked in that campaign, and he lost that campaign. But I guess I got bit by the bug. I really enjoyed campaigning.
Good.
I really enjoyed the art of politics. I enjoyed the learning, the new thing in life. So in 1982, I ran for city council in a 5-way race, and I was successful.
Good for you. So as a kid growing up, what was your dream to be? Is there a certain career you wanted to get into?
I wanted to be a bartender, which is what I was.
Bartender?
Which is what I was in the 70s and 80s. I went to Kane University, but it took me a long time to graduate because I was tending bar, and I always had a tip money in my pocket the next day, and thought this was the life. You always had money in your pocket. School wasn't exactly a priority. And then a woman became pregnant at Sealand Corporation, which is a trucking industry in the port section of our city. And the managers used to go into the bar that I worked. And they liked the way I tended bar, so when her name was Mary, when Mary was with child and had to take some time off, they said to me, why don't you come in and work for Mary? And, you know, we run the show, we'll get you in, you'll work for 3, 4, 5 months, then you come back and tend bar. And matter of fact, you can still tend bar at nights, which I did. I just didn't tend bar at the lunch shift anymore.
Wow.
So I went over there and I worked at Sealand, which was a white collar job. It was extremely fun and exciting. It was a whole nother thing to do. And I enjoyed the steamship business. I enjoyed the booking of the freight, tracking the cargo coming from Europe, coming from Asia into the United States, cargo leaving the United States, going to Europe and Asia. So I really enjoyed that aspect. The problem is Mary's pregnancy, you know, she had the baby and came back to work.
Okay.
But they liked me enough, so they started to move me around and hide me in different areas of the company.
Got it.
And then I went to work for what was called the Puerto Rican National Line, and it was called PRIMI for short, and it was Puerto Rico Maritime Management Company. And they just moved cargo between the States and Puerto Rico, Europe and Puerto Rico. And then I went to work for a company called Transatlantica Spanish Lines, which was owned by the Spanish government, and we mainly shipped cargo from Cadiz and from Barcelona into the United States. Problem was I couldn't grow. And now I was on the city council. I went back for my master's degree in public administration. So I wanted to have a future career in public administration, in the government somehow. I just didn't envision it being the mayor until about 1989.
So 1989 was when you first ran for the mayor seat?
No, 1989 I was the president of city council.
Okay.
And the mayor was in a fight, in a budget fight with the people in Trenton. The Speaker of the Assembly was a guy named Chuck Hardwick. And Chuck Hytaian was another speaker. These guys eventually ran for higher office and lost. They were members of the Republican Party. The mayor here was in a debate with them, sometimes nasty, about getting more funding here for police, fire, and to keep our taxes lower.
Sure.
So what he did in order to highlight the struggles of us economically is he laid off about 150 police and fire people. And when he laid off 150 people in 1989, as the president of city council, I authored a plan that would get them back to work, as well as move the money around in order to at least get these people back to work while we're fighting with the state. The mayor out and out rejected that proposal and kept them laid off. So what happened, there was a recall petition the mayor done. Those recall petitions were disposed of, thrown in the garbage. Somebody found them. So the election in 1992 for mayor, it was still fresh in the business community's mind. the police departments, the fire departments on these layoffs
course.
that were not necessary. And in 1992, in a very spirited election, I defeated him in a four-way race.
Wow, so it's been since 1992 that you've been the mayor for the city of Elizabeth. That's more wins than Michael Jordan and I think everyone combined. That's awesome.
Well, it's 7 elections as the mayor.
Oh, wow.
And then I had 3 elections as the city council.
Oh, okay.
So if I run again in 2020, which I plan to do, and if I am successful, which hopefully the voters will buy into the progress we've made into the city
It's
and our
huge.
message,
Yeah.
then I'll be elected for the 8th term, which will surpass my predecessor.
Do you have any plans, retirement anytime in the future?
No, I mean, it's one election at a time, and 2020 is a long way away.
It is.
It's still well over a year, so as of now, I plan to seek
Well, you're doing a
re-election.
great job.
Well, it's an evolution of work.
Yeah.
It clearly doesn't happen overnight, and it's a building process, and a lot of things take time to materialize.
Sure.
So in this job, one thing you need is patience to understand that things don't just happen overnight.
Yeah, well, I guess it's a lot of checks and balances. There's, 2 parties that have to agree on, one topic or one decision. So I know it takes time. It takes time, but I do see things progressing. I grew up in a city, and I remember when the Pioneer homes were my neighbor in my neighborhood, and now you don't see anything that remotely scary down there. Like things are starting to change. I'm getting people asking me for inventory down the port when at one point no one wanted to buy homes in the port, and now it's like you can't get a home in the port. Like it's that hard. So I do see the evolution of Elizabeth. I do see like the big changes, all the new infrastructure, and a lot of great things the city is trying to attract. The fact that you guys actually have someone committed to just bringing tourism into Elizabeth, that shows that you guys are forward thinking. Like Elizabeth is going to be a touristic area, like where someone actually books a vacation here, and it takes advantage of everything that's nearby. Having the airport that close, it's why not? You're positioned to be.
Well, the Pioneer Homes have been going manner, to start with there, it's 20 years now
Oh, it's been a long
that
time.
we were able to start that process of removal. And you're absolutely right. It was a haven for crime, and
It
the
was.
way it was designed in the 40s and 50s created these pockets and the corridors inside the buildings and inside the courtyards, which really caused difficulty for police to monitor it or
Yeah.
even fight back. So removing those buildings and building 1- and 2-family townhouses with backyards and front yard porches and individual air conditioning and individual entrances really went a long way. And we really worked with the community to make sure they understood that they had first right to come back to those units.
Of course.
So the people who lived there bought into the process of a Hope 6 grant, which was started in the Clinton administration. There are no longer those grants, but the Clinton administration started those grants to revitalize public housing throughout our country, and they worked.
Yeah.
Not only worked in our city, they worked in a lot of cities.
Yeah.
So that was a big success, and we've done Oakwood Plaza, and
Yeah,
that's
another
another
one.
big success in removing a criminal element that kind of
Yeah.
festered in there. So now we're focusing on Midtown, and we believe that we're finally going to create some nice high-rise buildings in
Trinitas
Midtown.
Hospital was?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
No, that's the old Election Brothers site.
Okay.
That site's stalled right now. That developer has stopped the progress. We're hopeful to get that back going again in the future.
So where in Midtown do you guys plan on this
The
development?
Midtown is next to the new Union County College building.
Okay,
There's
yeah.
one building going up now. They're grading the property right across from the
Yeah.
parking deck, which will put up another structure. Over on East Broad Street, where the old Coin Depot was, we're hopeful of building some more towers there.
Wow.
Because the train station's going to extend all the way to Chestnut Street, and that'll be within walking distance of East Broad Street. They wouldn't have to walk all the way down under the arch and get on the stairs. They could literally walk out their back door and walk up the stairs and go onto a train.
It's amazing. Are you at liberty to talk about anything progressive that you guys are pushing towards for Elizabeth in the future? There's been talk for years and years and years about ferries and easier commutes in New York. Is any of that actually on the horizon?
Well, actually, this month, since this is being taped in February of 2019, we have a Sea Streak is a ferry company who's going to come here through the tourism industry that you just spoke of, and Jennifer Costa and the work she's doing.
Yeah.
And we're doing a tour of a vessel,
Okay.
as well as a ride from here to Manhattan.
Okay.
On how long it would take, what's possible ridership, the parking, and they're going to look to see if they can launch, at least on a temporary basis, a ferry here on weekends. Our strength is not so much in going to New York, even though there's a lot of people that would like to go to New York and spend the day. But think of all the people who live in the Chelsea neighborhood or the Sea Market area, the Fish Market area, who live downtown, would want to come here and shop at Jersey Gardens.
That's true. That's very true.
So the reverse commute would be one of our strengths in developing a ferry service.
Yeah, and the whole downtown, the businesses that you have downtown can flourish as well.
Yeah, I mean, you could have, the goal would be to start a ferry service from the time they get off the vessel.
Absolutely.
And take them to either Jersey Gardens or Broad Street, or take them to historic homes in Elizabeth, or something else that they want to do. And then 7 or 8 hours later, they can go back. And with Uber today, you may not even need a shuttle service.
Of course.
People that get on their own.
Yeah, of course. That's great. With technology nowadays, everything is possible.
Right.
So that's excellent. Yeah, I do think that Elizabeth has a lot of great history, a lot of great attributes, and a lot of things to offer people who don't know. And obviously, when you do go to IKEA and you go to Jersey Gardens Mall, you see a lot of people from New York already. So you can start to wonder, like, wow, people really come here for shopping? That's actually a thing. And I can imagine once they do start coming in through different avenues, such as a ferry, all the streets from the ferry to major highways or to the mall, or are going to start to also blossom. New businesses are going to pop up, and it's going to be great for the city in general, but especially for that 07206 neighborhood, because that is really, like, I would say, the last remaining piece of Elizabeth that is still developing. Because I think that pretty much
that's the oldest part of our city as well.
Yeah,
it's the first part of the city that was developed. Some of the homes there go back well over 120 years.
Yeah,
some of the buildings there are 120, 130 years old.
Yep.
Because that area was developed all the way back to the Revolutionary War. That was where the commerce took place.
Yeah.
That's where the first submarine bought by the U.S. Navy was built, the U.S. Holland 6.
Okay.
There's a picture of it on the outer wall. In the 1930s, it was cut up and sold for scrap metal. So that section of our city being the oldest means most of the properties, as you know, in real estate, they're built very close together.
Yeah.
And side yards and planning boards and things like that were not in existence when that neighborhood was built.
Absolutely not.
So therefore, going forward, more multifamily housing exists in that neighborhood, and more affordable housing exists there. But it's a much better neighborhood than it was, say, 25 years ago.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, for this interview today. I thank you. I know you're a very busy man. If anyone would like to know more about what's going on in Elizabeth, where can they visit? Is there a website that they can go to?
Well, they can visit the elizabethnj.org website, which is under construction at the moment.
Okay.
We had hackers last year.
Oh, no.
And we hope to have it up and running sometime over the next couple of months. Or they can call the Public Information Office at 908-820-4124, and we can connect them with whatever information they need.
That's awesome. So thank you very much. And thank you guys for watching. Again, Christian Bollwage, he is the mayor of the city of Elizabeth and running again for election in 2020. So look out for him, and if you do enjoy what's going on in the city of Elizabeth, please get out and vote for him in 2020.
Thank you,
Mr. Mayor. Appreciate it.
Have a great day.